So let me share with you the ingredients to baking a successful community cake. So the first, I think, the flour in the cake, in every single story, are the gifts of people, particularly individuals who are defining themselves as contributors more so than as receivers. That they've actually framed their own identity, their own efficacy in the world in terms of how they make a contribution to other people. Not as an act of charity, but as an act of consent and care. And in every single neighbourhood, without exception, there are a critical mass of people who care enough to act. The technical term for them is citizens. The opposite would be client. And what I think is really important about associations is that is where people freely express and exchange care. So certainly from an ABCD perspective, we would say that informal social networks, and what I mean by an association is where 3 or more people gather together to do something not by control, but by consent that they can't do on their own. Institutions, organizations with paid people who are helpful tend to act like treasure chests and not fortress walls. They tend to organize themselves the way we organize our lives in the neighborhood, not the other way around, where they expect us to organize our lives the way they organize their service or their institution. So what they were describing was the opposite of what you see in this image. They were describing organizations that were not defining themselves as the producers of service or some kind of a commodity, but as organizations that understood that wonderful reminder of an Aboriginal social worker when she said that people will say to me, if I have come to provide them a service, pass on. But if I have come because I know that my liberation is intimately tied with theirs, welcome, friend, stay. We spent a lot of time trying to be helpful to communities by going in and separating them out into target groups. So we work with the youth at risk, and we work with the frail elderly, and we work with the ex-prisoners, and we aggregate them together, which seems to me the dumbest idea in the world. Yes. So I'm going to take all the youth at risk, and I'm going to put them together with the other youth at risk, and magically they're going to be less at risk. This is hubris. It has to be hubris. This assumption that we can aggregate people and by stealth of our professional capacity, we're going to make them less dysfunctional. Doesn't make any sense at all. And yet we live in a time when young people and older people are more age segregated than at any other time in our history. We call this progress. The 5th building block is economic exchange, but not just money. I think exchange in the widest sense of the term. Gift exchange, time exchange, exchange of mutuality. But money matters too. I don't think we can have a credible conversation about community building unless we're also talking about economic justice. We live in a world across the OECD in particular where over 60% of money that goes to anti-poverty does not go to the poor. It goes to paid professional people who are providing services to the poor. This, in a radical view of things, is nothing short of legislated poverty. In the final analysis, I think stories are what really create the change we seek. And stories that aren't just stories from around this place, but stories that talk about things we haven't heard about. Stories that come from the stranger, coming over the horizon. You know, there's a hidden danger in community. And the hidden danger is that every community is bounded by a group of people related to each other by affinity. And that means that they are closed. The only way we can deal with our closedness is to create a welcome at the edge of that boundary. So we will never, ever measure the strength of community by the resilience of the people in that circle. The true measure of powerful community is its capacity to welcome the stranger and hear the story, the song, and the poem they had to share. That's the measure of a powerful, enduring community.